heavyweight action in boxing as well in the last couple of days. We'll talk about Luis Ortiz and Andy Ruiz in Los Angeles at the weekend a little later. But first of all, the big item right now is Tyson Fury serious when he stands towering above his own doorway in his own home, holding a couple of belts, WBC belt, he's the champion, of course, calling out Anthony Joshua because he hasn't got a fight in December. He's heard Anthony Joshua moments after losing in successive fights to Alexander Usyk at the press conference saying to Eddie, I want to fight again in December. Tyson's heard that. He doesn't want a treading water fight, doesn't want to fight the Mountain, really, the world's strongest man, as he told me, doesn't really want to fight Derek Chisora. That was a sideshow as well. But he suddenly thought, you know what? Alexander Usyk's ruled himself out till 2023. I don't want a treading water fight. I want to fight Joshua. I want to put my boot on his neck when he's down now and tease him and put a ruse out there. That's what I think anyway. How do you see it, Nick Pete?
Yeah, listen, I think there's a lot of noise behind the scenes and on social media actually between Tyson and Manuel Charr. The German looked like he was going to come from being an unranked heavyweight to getting a shot at the WBC title. And I don't know whether it was the feedback of the fans or the negativity online about these two going backwards and forwards that's made Tyson have a little bit of a rethink. But I think him calling out Anthony Joshua, yes, the man's down at the moment. Kick him while he's down. Why not? That's typical Tyson Fury. Get a bit of a boot in there. But what he's also done is he's thrown Anthony Joshua a lifeline. He's thrown him a rubber ring off the Titanic and said, "Come on, climb on board. I'll help save you." Because Anthony Joshua, if he takes a fight with Tyson Fury and was to win a fight with Tyson Fury, he becomes a three-time heavyweight champion of the world, something Tyson's never done. Joins Lennox Lewis as one of the all-time greats in heavyweight boxing. That's the opportunity that Tyson's put in front of him. And I know there's a caveat of conversations about TV networks and money and splits and everything else. However, I'm just delighted AJ came back straight away and said, okay, listen, if you're serious, we're not doing it here on social media. Reach out to my management team and let's have a serious conversation. For me, that means AJ's interested. Now it's over to Tyson. Was Tyson just trying to ridicule him? Or is Tyson Fury willing to gamble everything he's earned on a guy coming off the back of 2 losses? I think we're going to find out in the next couple of days.
Do you, knowing boxing as we do, yes, all those things you posit there, is it truly a lifeline? Let's listen to a moment to what Eddie Hearn had to say on this morning's breakfast show on talkSPORT.
Yeah, I had a chat last night with George Warren from Queensbury. I mean, look, I think I'd love to get really excited about this because I think it's the fight that I get stopped on the street for more than any fight that could ever be made. So, and it's a fight that AJ's wanted for a long time. Don't forget, we signed for this fight last year before the court arbitration forced the Deontay Wilder fight for Tyson Fury. So it's an interesting one because last week he retired, then he'd only come back to fight Usyk, then he made an offer to Derek Chisora, then he wanted $500 million, then he'd retired again, then he's fighting Usyk in December, now he's fighting AJ. So the message is quite clear from AJ that we don't want to get involved in a backwards and forwards. We want the fight. You know, it's the fight that he's wanted for a long time. We had plans after the Usyk defeat to come back in December and then go again in March, get active, get the rhythm going again, and then try and fight for the world heavyweight title. But I know, having spoken to AJ, as you saw from his message, if that fight is there and they're serious, which, you know, I have my doubts, but listen, let's for the good of trying to make it happen, let's believe Tyson Fury. And I said to George Warren last night, get the details over to us, get the offer over to us. I will take it to AJ. He's ready to go. You know, like I said, we didn't expect this opportunity, but it's a great opportunity to fight for the world title in the biggest fight in boxing. And we will definitely look at it. For me, and the cynic in me of boxing, this smells of, oh, we couldn't agree the AJ deal, so I'm fighting this bloke you've never heard of instead, but no one else was available. I tried to make the AJ fight, etc., etc. But like I said, let's take the cynic away and let's see what we get back from the Fury camp, because we're ready to discuss it and we're ready to look at that fight for sure.
is it right for AJ mentally, physically, to get back into camp in about maybe a month's time max after being beaten 17 days ago? And we saw where he was mentally and emotionally.
Yeah. To be fair, though, I think he was so mentally and emotionally invested because for me, I know he lost, but for me, that was the best version of Anthony Joshua I've ever seen. I thought he looked great at times in the Usyk fight. The problem is he's come up against an all-time great in world boxing in Alexander Usyk. There's no shame in that. It's a competition at the end of the day. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in fight sports, that one loss, and suddenly we're talking about retirement and, you know, his legacies being blown. It's a sports competition at the end of the day. He come out with his faculties intact. Okay, you know, his pride took a little bit of annihilation, and the PR exercise that played out in the ring with the microphone afterwards should and could have been avoided. But this is an opportunity for him to rebuild that and come back straight away. Nobody wants to see him, you know, have a fight in December, you know, against an unranked heavyweight and then come back in March with another one and we get told by his team, oh, AJ's rebuilding. He doesn't need to rebuild. He's at the top of the tree right now. He's at the peak of his powers. He's one of the top 5 heavyweights in the world. And the guy in the #1 spot has said, I'll give you a shot at my belt. Let's talk about money. He would be absolutely mental to say, well, no, actually, I'm going to go and rebuild over here with my team. No, rightfully so. AJ's gone, great, okay, let's go. I'm better than I've ever been. Let's have a conversation. And if we can make sure that this split isn't ridiculous, then I think the fight is possible.
Do you think, though, that they'll go to Cardiff? Do you think they'll go to the Middle East? My instinct is if the money's available from the Middle East, they'll go back there. But my belief is this fight should be in the UK now, especially where they both stand right
Yeah,
now.
exactly. 100%. I think if AJ beats Usyk, I think there's no conversation at all. We're going back to Middle East. They're going to put a lot of money on the table, and the Battle of Britain, unfortunately, the biggest fight in the history of British heavyweight boxing, is going to end up in Saudi Arabia. However, just because of the manner of the defeat on AJ on 2 occasions now, I think it's just perfect for the Millennium Stadium. I'm with Eddie. Listen, if you're going to do it here. Let's go for big pay-per-view numbers. I think it'll do over 1.5 million buys, even though
Easily.
AJ's coming off losses. And I think they've just got to be realistic at the table. You know, I think back to when Tyson fought Deontay the first time, when he went to America, he went to Los Angeles, he'd been in retirement, he'd been huge overweight. You know, we all know the story that Tyson went on. When he went and took that fight against Wilder kind of offered him a lifeline, Gareth. And what was the split then? Was it Wilder 60%, Tyson Fury 40%? Was it in those realms?
Less. I think Frank Warren said it's something like 70-30 at the time, you know.
There you go.
It might have even been 75-25. It's definitely, It was a low, so Frank's brought it up a few times. I'll add to what you were saying as well. Remember when Deontay Wilder won his court of arbitration case for the trilogy fight? Everybody moaned and groaned that they were going to fight for a third time. Then, of course, it got delayed from August to October. Yeah. And yet we had the most amazing fight, and everybody kind of really got involved in it and got stuck into it. I think talkSPORT for that event had their highest listening figures ever. Yeah, you know, that's a barometer of how much interest there was. I think if this fight is signed, and it is Cardiff, even if it's the Middle East, because they plump up 80 million plus they stump up 80 million plus for a fight in the Middle East. Everyone will moan and groan saying, oh, AJ's lost 3 of his last 5. But the points that you make are very germane and very relevant, that here's an opportunity for Anthony Joshua, I agree, an improved fighter in the second fight, to jump back into the title picture. And who knows what's going to happen? Exactly. And people will buy into it. If it's made and we see them together, see the press conferences, see them standing next to each other, people will buy into it. Giant men fighting, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Listen, and you know, sometimes styles make fights, and maybe Alexander Usyk's style is just all wrong for Anthony Joshua. Maybe Tyson Fury's style will be a lot more suitable for Anthony Joshua, you know? And I think where AJ is right now, as you say, he's coming off the back of a good fight camp, a good performance. Again, okay, he lost, but it was a good performance from him. I just think if he doesn't take this fight, he's staring down the barrel of 18 months without a title fight? What's he going to do?
Because it's more than likely that Usyk and Fury will fight to a points decision, in my view, when they fight, and we're looking.
Which means we'll get a rematch.
Yeah, we're looking at April 23.
Yeah,
we're probably going. They'll probably do 2 fights, one at Wembley, one in Saudi, or one in the Middle East. And so Joshua's frozen out till 2024, isn't he?
of course. And then you've got Joe Joyce taking on Joe Parker. You've got Deontay Wilder making his comeback as well. So AJ, what's AJ going to do? Fight one of those guys? Fighting Deontay Wilder at the back end of next year in a final eliminator. You may as well circumnavigate that and jump straight in with Fury now. You got nothing to lose. You may as well just go for it.
The Frank Warren has compared Tyson Fury to Muhammad Ali in recent months at a lunch we had with him in Little Italy in Soho, at a boxing writers' lunch. Bob Arum has said a few times, and said to me as well, that he said for a while that Tyson Fury reminds him, he's the latest Muhammad Ali in terms of self-promotion. You've got to say that, you know, there he was in Cardiff at the weekend, knocking out one of the WWE stars from the VIP seats. It looked quite nasty, the old forearm smash. But he's learned how to do all that. We know he had training for it. And there he is on Monday. Actually, so it's clever promoting, isn't it? He really has got a sense of how to do it, how to generate interest in it. Imagine if Muhammad Ali had social media, you know?
Wow.
That would have been incredible.
It'd have been absolutely unreal, you know, and it would have changed boxing forever, of course, not that he didn't anyway. But the point you make, I think there's an element of Tyson has made that video to call out AJ, maybe to ridicule, but then also maybe to think, you know what, I'll get this done. If he can get, in his mind, if he can get AJ in the ring before the end of this year and beat Anthony Joshua, then he's only really got to beat Usyk, and his legacy is confirmed. He can ride off into the sunsets.
The era, yeah.
And he'll go down as the greatest heavyweight of this era. Right now, there's still a question mark. There's a question mark about Usyk. There's a question mark about Joshua, and he's got to make sure he deals with them before he rides off into retirement. I think that's why he's quite happy to bring this fight up now and to make this fight happen in December. I think every fight fan listening should be 100. I know we've all been cynical. We've learned to be cynical, especially around Tyson, who changes his mind like the weather. You know, he retired last week. He was fighting Dillian White. He had a new coach. That's Tyson. That's just the way he is. However, by coming out and publicly calling out Anthony Joshua, and Anthony Joshua replying, and now their teams are having conversations. Now it's up to the fighters. It's not about Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren and the TV networks. It's about Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury putting their big socks on and saying, right, it's happening. No matter what, it's happening. I'll take this. He takes that. Make the fight. And we'll get it.
2 little things. If we go back a couple of weeks on that point, we got a break. I could talk a whole hour about this today, to be quite honest. I could do the whole show on it, but we can't. Couple of weeks ago, he said, in fact, I was with him in Bristol on the tour, and he said it to me, and I remember recording it at the time, and he did put it out worldwide as well. I'll fight Anthony Joshua for free. So one.
Yeah.
And what's the percentage of this fight happening? I'll give mine. He ain't going to fight Anthony Joshua for free. No. And I think there's this 20% chance of this fight going ahead.
I hope it's more. I really do. I hope it's more, because AJ deserves more. Let's make sure that Tyson isn't thinking 20 for you, 80 for me. I think 65-35 split is more than fair. Is more than fair.
Oh no, I'm talking about the chance of it happening. I don't know. It's got
right
for me. It's 60-40, 70-30, something like that.
Yeah. I'm right in the middle of you.
Absolutely. And that's where the fight might fall down.